Hey everybody, welcome back to Elfbait. This is Eli, and so today I wanted to do a real quick video just to kind of cover some general gaming stuff. I've also got a couple of campaign diaries to record. We did get Monday game and Sunday game in this week, so lots to tell there. But real quick, I just wanted to kind of touch on something that happened with me recently. While I was just doing some world building, and for me, this is sort of an element of self-doubt, and this is, I think, something that a lot of longtime players might actually run into. Creative types and our own worst critics, and especially now if you've been running games forever, and we now live in this world where we have the internet and everything, and there's all this information bouncing off of us, not just the stuff that we pick up at the local shop. It could be that it's really easy, well, for me, it's really easy to hear all of this, take in this new information, and then start to kind of analyze what I'm doing and what I've always been doing, what people have been enjoying in my campaigns as a DM, and start to wonder if I'm doing it right. Now, that's a kind of a tricky word and a dangerous word to get tied up around, and that's a right. Right is not going to be the same thing for everybody. So, kind of before I go too far off here, so what happened with me is, I was really thinking about, my kind of backtrack a bit. My brother and I are in a car ride, and he's talking about some stuff he's been reading. He's really a big meta gamer, really likes to read up on game theory and all of this. And so he was talking about a bit he had read, I can't remember from who, just an essay on gaming and DMing, where the author talked about finding something, basically listing your strengths and your weaknesses as a DM. I'm pretty sure I know what my strengths are. And so I didn't even bother with that because, really, it's not something that, I spend too much time thinking about. But I did get into thinking about what some of my opportunities would be. I wouldn't even call them weaknesses. I work in corporate America, and they're always calling it, opportunities. Not, the weakness or fault or shortcoming, is those terms are never really used. And I think that's a good thing to get into the habit of avoiding. Is you don't want to use those, because really they are opportunities. But for me, it was hard to find those. Not that I'm so full of myself as to think that I have very few of those, but for me, I really wanted to find ones that were, in my mind, something that bared looking into or bared improving on. And so the one that really popped up was, I felt that, and this is just me analyzing myself, I felt that in my history as a dungeon master, I had always had trouble transitioning in a long campaign, in an extended campaign with the same players, from one story arc to another. Now, not necessarily one adventure to another, because sometimes a individual story might encompass multiple adventures, but getting, after you slay the evil overlord, whatever, just off the top of my head, where do you go? How do you get the players to move on to the next thing? And of course, I've used the tried and true. I've used you hear it at an inn. I've used rumors. I've used NPC drops, where basically somebody shows up. Oh, please come help us. These I've all done. I have done some sandboxing in the past where the players sort of find their own way, or in some cases, the players may have picked up tidbits or latched onto things over the course of the game that were never even an intended really quest for me or anything, or an adventure for me as their DM. But go with the flow. Read your crowd. The players are always going to come up with great stuff. So all of this is things that I had been doing, but I always felt that in doing those kind of tried, canned options, NPC drops, rumors, and things like that, that was very mechanical. And mind you, this is just my perception. No, not saying it's the gospel. The other thing was the sandboxing, and that's fun too, but so often when you leave it to a sandbox, the players end up spending a lot of time spinning their wheels, and they spend much of their time kind of flitting about, and it can be hard sometimes to get them to jump into an adventure. So that is what I identified as my weakness, which was, or my opportunity, which was transitioning from one story to another. So I went to the internet. It's a place to go when you have questions. You know, we want to engage a larger collective. And I put out that question. Are there other things I can be doing? And so I got a lot of responses. But the curious thing that I found as I started getting those responses was that these are things that I had been doing. Somebody might suggest this, and I'm like, okay, well, I do that. Somebody might suggest that, and I do that as well. And as I started reading the comments, and nothing really profoundly new was popping up, it occurred to me then that I had not really had trouble transitioning between games. I had been doing that. But I'd come to think that it was rough. And I think that perception doesn't come from my DMing. I think that perception comes from the time I've spent DMing. And this is kind of what I was saying earlier. It's a perception. There's a potential trap you can get into when you've been running games for so long, that the way things are done, the best practices, can sometimes start to feel like the tried and the true, the tired, the old, the cliche, the mundane. These things are all things that you're going to pop into your head, not because they are those things, but because you've been doing them so long and likely so well that you don't even think about them. They do seem routine. But that's what makes them good, and that's where I'm kind of coming around here. In this is so in this perceived opportunity, I found not an issue that even needed improving on. I found that I had been doing those things that all these other DMs had been doing, and it was only my isolation as a DM and the fact that I had been doing for so long that really made it seem like a problem. So the good news is that there's nothing wrong with those. And so the message here, I think, is as a player, as a DM, whether you're an old player or a new player, or an old DM or a new DM, consider for a moment where you think these self-doubts and these questions, because we all have them. Creative minds are always in that place. It's hard not to be. But if you're going to find yourself there, really think about where they're coming from. Is this an actual problem? Is this an actual issue? Or is it something that's just how it's done? There are so many things in the hobby, gaming, D&D, but gaming in general, that do fall back and are perfectly okay and perfectly comfortable in the cliche, in the borrowed aspects of the genre. I think most of us came to the genre because, and the hobby, because of things we had read, things we had seen, things we really liked about that comic book or that novel or that movie or that TV series, or that story, that folk tale, that piece of mythology. So what's wrong with using those? There's nothing wrong with using those. When you're using those aspects of your inspiration, that's where the game comes from. And that's where the game really settles in. You're going to find new ways, but even if you can't find a new way, putting a new face and a new name on the same story can make it as good a game as it was a story. Your players may even recognize this. Oh, old man, young king, magic sword, trouble in the land. This is King Arthur. But Do they have a problem walking through a new version of King Arthur? Probably not. And they'll probably do it a dozen times more in their career as a gamer. So be kind to yourself. Really, when you have those thoughts as to whether or not you're doing it right, my best suggestion would be, if nobody is complaining about it and everybody seems to be having fun, if you're having fun, there is no problem. So I'm going to leave it there. My usual thing is to wander into some babble afterwards, but really, think about it. Next time you have a doubt, is there really an issue? This is Eli with Elfbait. Thanks for tuning in again, and get out and game.